to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. Members, we're on Senate File 20. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Senate File number 20 before us is special session number 20. Members, this is the Environmental Natural Resource Appropriation and Policy Bill, taking in, of course, the Minnesota DNR, the MPCA Bowser, as well as the museum and the Minnesota Zoo. There are 6 parts to the bill, members, and I know in my absence, Senator Root did a fantastic job of presenting the bill earlier during the regular session when I had to leave for medical reasons. And just a couple of things here I'd like to just bring up. Before I get going, of course, it's always fun to work with real professionals. Members, this place would not work without both the partisan and nonpartisan staff. I want to thank Megan Hennon, my committee administrator, and my CLA Will Wagner for the amount of work and dedication, as well as the nonpartisan staff, Dan Mueller, finance, and Ben Stanley from legal, and of course the icon that has been talked about here for some time, and I never had the opportunity to thank Greg Knopf for the many years that I was able to work with him. And he worked, I'm thinking, probably twice as many years as I've been in the Senate before I got here. And he was a walking machine of knowledge when it came to the environment and agriculture. And I'll never forget the time that I came in here all spit and vinegar, and I was going to change things and do things differently. And I got a hold of Greg Knopf, and I said, "What do you think about my new idea?" Well, it's been tried about 6 times, Senator. So this happened that year, this happened, this senator carried it, and I just looked at the guy and I went, wow. So I really appreciate the fact that we should all appreciate the fact that we had the opportunity to work with Greg. And again, also thanks to the leadership team so diligently working the last days on all these bills. Members, the Senate File number 20 consists of course, some policy as well as the finance. And we had a target of about $30 million, actually $30 million, and I say about because there was some added towards the end for different appropriations. We constructed a budget that fully funds government agencies and Minnesota state parks and trails without increasing fees, members. Those of you that were around some years ago, I carried the bill to actually raise fees and for hunting and fishing fees. These fees, particular fees that they were asking for this year, have not been raised since 2006. And I do see the need for this, but this year with the amount of money that has been appropriated and been moving around, and with the budget situation that we are in, it would be a real tough sale for the public, especially in the fact that we were able to fully fund it with our existing money. So, real proud of the work that we did with that, as well as, of course, the state parks are all going to be funded, and we're focusing on existing programs targeting AIS with a special funding. As you know, that continues to be an issue in Minnesota. We did a lot of funding for that, some increased funding, as well as research for the University of Minnesota. Flood mitigation reports and money to rural septics. Members, this is something new. $1.4 million will be going out for grants for rural septic systems. There's a huge need out there. Our bill also includes the 2021 and 2022 LCCMR bills. Understand, members, that the most current one, 2022 LCCMR bill, was unanimously voted upon by the LCCMR committee, which I'm one of the co-chairs. The one last year was not. In fact, of the 8 members on there, 6 members voted against it going out of that particular council to go to bill form. That's where we had a lot of hang-up with that. Again, talking about overall bill, it has minimal amounts of policy, either new or changed. And with that, members, I know everybody's looking forward to moving on, but the bill has not changed that terribly much. You'll see a couple of different amendments. One regards to PFAS, which was in the bill to start with, just some actual technical language, and of course CWD, the most recent situation that the DNRs had to deal with regards to chronic wasting disease in our whitetail herd here in Minnesota, talking about farms, and we think we did a pretty good job of putting that together. The administration all agreed to the way we've got the bill written now, and we think that over the next couple of years we'll be able to better define what really the problem is and how we're going to be resolving it. So with that, members, I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you at least the first time with my bill. And again, I appreciate Senator Ruud doing what she did, standing in for me earlier. So if you have any questions, I stand for questions, members.
Discussion on Senate File 20. The Secretary will, Senator Marty.
Mr. President, there are a number of provisions I like in the bill, and like all of us, there are a number of things I'm not thrilled with. But one of the issues that really troubles me is that we've got a growing problem with chronic wasting disease, and we're doing so little about it in here. And I think that we should be looking at ways to try and be more aggressive about this, because once it spreads, we're kind of stuck with it, and it's not easy to get rid of. And I'm concerned about, we may have 500,000 deer hunters in the state, but I think a lot of the problem is coming from the farm survey, and it's really a trouble that we're doing so little to regulate. There is some good things in the bill. We're at least giving the DNR the ability to help enforce there. But I have a problem with the idea we're spending in this bill an extra $2.25 million a year just to inspect these farms, which is where a lot of the disease spread seems to be coming from, and a lot of the movement of deer around the state from these. And it seems to me that the first thing we ought to do when we're in trouble is stop getting the problem worse. And I'm not sure there are a lot of new farms proposed, but there are continuing a growing number over the years. And so I have the A13 amendment, which would not allow for, would put a moratorium on new cervidae farms that have white-tailed deer. And Mr. President and members, I think this is a modest step at a time when this is spreading, and if you talk to people in any corner of the state, I think this is a big concern.
Senator Marty, let us report the amendment, please. Senator Marty offers the A13 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Marty moves to amend Senate File number 20 as follows, page 60 after line 8. Insert, this is the A13 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Marty.
And Mr. President, I already spoke to it some, but I'm happy to stand for questions. It's a simple amendment. It's a simple step we can take to make the problem not get worse until we have a better handle on it. Again, I don't oppose the provisions in the bill. I think they're a small step forward, but a tiny step forward at a time when we've got to be more aggressive at preventing this from happening. Like with a lot of other problems, like invasive species, once they spread, you can't get rid of the problem, and this is one that I think our deer population around the state, we have to get a handle on it, and this is a modest step. I don't know of any proposals for increasing them, but it sounds like every couple of years we get a number of more. And when we're spending, this is one the fees aren't covering, this is when the taxpayers are going to be paying over $2.25 million a year just to inspect these handful of farms. the small number of farms, and I don't think we need to be making the problem worse until we get control of it. So I urge your support. Ask for a roll call.
Roll call will be granted. Discussion on the A13 amendment. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Marty, for the discussion. I'm going to ask members not to vote for the amendment, and the reasons why is I think well, it's very clear the DNR has aggressively went after this with the concern that happened up in Beltrami County, and you'll see that by the amount of money that we are actually appropriating to the DNR to deal with and assist the Board of Animal Health with moving forward. I'm not sure people know that the Board of Animal Health oversees all farm animals in the state of Minnesota, including cervidae, which is, whitetail elk, whitetail deer elk, and reindeer, and the such. And that's just a function that they have had. I do and have checked with other states because of the jurisdictional thing that has been talked about for some years, and Senator Marty, you're right. We have been talking about this, and there has been some of these springing up here and there. But this last one, I guess, is the one that really kind of it's not the right term, broke the camel's back here or whatever. But nevertheless, it really got the DNR's attention and everybody's attention, the whitetail hunters, and as we all know, it's a huge industry. But what we did is we did put together I think a pretty good agreement with the administration as well as the House and of course us, and we were able to have a collaborated effort for at least a year with a report coming back at the beginning of next year, actually February 1st, 2022. The Commissioner of Natural Resources, in conjunction with the Board of Animal Health, must send a report as to how the collaboration, the co-collaboration, co-work between the two agencies has been over this short period of time. And I think with the dollars that are there, I think this is a good way to resolve it. We have to also consider the farmers that have been farming these animals for some years. There was 400 and some farms, maybe I want to say 5-6 years ago. They're down to about 173 farms now, and most of those farms, there's less than, I believe, actually some of them are single-digit numbered animals. So occasionally you get some bad players like you did up in Beltrami, but you don't throw everybody out, it seems like. And I understand what you're trying to do here, and I think this might be something that later on, after this report comes out, that might be a way to go. I don't know. I'm not going to say that it is one way or the other. But I think that's a little bit too much, too quickly, and I certainly agree with you with the concern, but I think how we've dealt with it today, especially with the Commissioner and the House members, in agreement, I think we're just fine moving forward. So again, I would ask for a red vote on this amendment, but thank you, Senator, for your concern.
Further discussion on the A13 amendment. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Well, I'm glad to hear the concern. I think like Representative Eklund's bill in the House went about 30 times further than this. And I think it really would make a huge difference. And I'm not proposing, I think it would be wise, as you said, yeah, we're allowing the DNR to start doing more and enforcing this. But I think it would have been wiser to take the entire issue away from Board of Animal Health and put it in the DNR. I think it'd be wise to have the deer farmers pay for the inspections that are necessary for their operations. That's what all the other license holders in our state, people who pay registration fees, it's to cover the costs. But I think they're paying like $30,000 for something that's now costing $2.5 million a year. And I really think I'd love to have more steps like that, but it seems to me, because of the nature of the situation, that just simply saying that at least let's not make the problem get worse. Don't allow new ones into the field right now. Just allow it just to be capped at where we are. That's all it's asking for. It's a very modest ask. It's not asking for huge changes, and I think the industry, the tourism industry related to deer hunting in this state is huge, and this small number, I think it's 180 or something of the farms, I mean, that allowing that to put the risk of the whole deer population at risk, I think is not a good thing. And so I understand if this doesn't pass, but it strikes me this is a small step forward instead of just standing and waiting for a study to come back and say maybe we could do more.
Further discussion on the amendment. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Marty, I thank you again for bringing the concern forward. I think it's important to know that the body know that the governor could actually take action to actually do this transition totally without legislative approval. So that is in, I believe, Chapter 15 of the Minnesota statutes. I believe it's 15. Don't quote me on that. But he could actually do that. He chose to not do that, so we had to act with what we had. And again, I think we acted the DNR acted very swiftly and to the point. And I think everybody's very comfortable with this. The agricultural community is still looking at this themselves, and they know that the Board of Animal Health has done a good job of overseeing. They're a group of veterinarians, so they know the science of all these diseases, and were they checking the whitetail herds enough? Maybe not, but we think that the report will show that. And so again, I would ask folks to vote red on this amendment. But again, I understand that, and I think it was important to note that the governor could have done this without legislative approval, but he chose not to, so this is what we're doing for now.
Further discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, the secretary will take the roll. Any members not in the chamber, please come to the chamber to vote. I'll call on Senator Frentz to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes aye.
Carlson votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Champion votes aye.
Champion votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Dietzick votes aye.
Dietzick votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Isaacson votes aye.
Isaacson votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Klein votes aye.
Klein votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Murphy votes aye.
Murphy votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Newton votes aye.
Newton votes aye. Senator Frentz.
And Senator Port votes aye.
Port votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes no.
Abler votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes no.
Coleman votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Goggin votes no.
Goggin votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Housley votes no.
Housley votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Kiffmeyer votes no.
Kiffmeyer votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes no.
Lang votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Benson votes no.
Benson votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Osmic votes aye.
Osmic votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Johnson votes no.
Johnson votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Westrom votes no.
Westrom votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Newman votes no.
Newman votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes no.
Senjum votes no. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 29 ayes and 35 nays, the motion has not prevailed. The amendment is not adopted. Further discussion on Senate File 20. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to offer the A15 amendment.
Senator Dibble offers the A15 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Dibble moves to amend Senate File number 20 as follows. Page 107, delete Section 99. This is the A15 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a roll call
A
vote.
roll call will be granted. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members, what section or amendment A15 would accomplish would be to delete on page 107, section 99, and on page 152, section 133. And members, the reason I think this is a good idea is because those are provisions from a bill that was made a part of this omnibus bill that prevents our pollution control agency from requiring permittees who choose coverage under the general feedlot permit to reduce nitrogen impacts from manure when it is applied at those times of the year when there is a greater propensity and a greater danger of that manure causing extreme nitrogen increases in our waters. Mr. President, members, the general feedlot permit does not prohibit the fall application of manure, but does give producers some very common sense option to reduce the impact of nitrogen, which has a very, very tremendous and negative consequence for our environment. I'm looking at communication that was transmitted when this bill was first being considered earlier in the session from Trout Unlimited. And they say that this has a terrible effect on their pursuit and their sport, which represents more than $878 million annually. When misapplied, the manure washes into trout streams, resulting in fish kills and harming rural communities. The conditions that this bill prohibits the MPCA from employing and permits are exactly the sort of conditions needed to protect drinking water, trout, and other aquatic wildlife from the devastating impacts of manure and associated nutrients being washed into nearby streams and waters. Members, this general feedlot permit rule is based on science. Research demonstrates that fall and winter application manure can cause a great loss of that manure from the field to the water. There are just some very, very common sense measures that the PCA has put in place. It has not been challenged. We know that nitrogen has been increasing over recent years in our waters. It has a tremendous negative consequence for human health as well as the environment. And so, members, I would encourage a green vote on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Discussion on the A15 amendment. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would encourage a red vote on this amendment. The reality of it is that the MPCA has implemented a set of rules across this state that do not take into account the variability of our areas and across this state. They don't take into account the differences in weather that you have from the Canadian border all the way down to the Iowa border. And quite frankly, many of their actions have been misguided in many sense of the word. All we're asking for here is those first 2 weeks of October. I remember back a couple years ago when we had extremely wet conditions, and quite frankly, there was no opportunity in September or even the first 2 weeks of October to establish any type of a cover crop. The reality of it is that some of the rules that they have tried to put in place provide such or produce such a situation for our livestock producers that they are going to wind up having to stockpile and actually create, which would create more problems than if they have a proper application. The farmers of this state understand the responsibility that they have, and the reality of it is that the MPCA has failed to take into consideration the various weather and climate situations across this state, and for that purpose alone, I would encourage everyone to give a red vote to this. I stated when I presented the bill originally that it was my opinion that the MPCA really doesn't know manure about manure, and nothing has changed my mind since.
Further discussion on the amendment. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think I can trump that, but I do appreciate the work that Senator Weber has done on this. And this, again, members, this is an agreement between the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. So this was brought down a long ways from the original, and I think it was a good compromise. And again, a red vote on this one would be appreciated.
Further discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, the secretary will take the roll. Any members not in the chamber, please come vote. Call on Senator Frentz to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes aye.
Carlson votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Champion votes aye.
Champion votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Diedzik votes aye.
Diedzik votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Eakin votes no.
Eakin votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Isaacson votes aye.
Isaacson votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Klein votes aye.
Klein votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Murphy votes aye.
Murphy votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Newton votes aye.
Newton votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Port votes aye.
Port votes aye. Senator Frentz.
And Senator Rest votes aye.
Rest votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Ayler votes no.
Abler votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Benson votes no.
Benson votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes no.
Coleman votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Housley votes no.
Housley votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Johnson votes no.
Johnson votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Kiffmeyer votes no.
Kiffmeyer votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Newman votes no.
Newman votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Osmic votes no.
Osmic votes no. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes no.
Senjum votes no. Senator Jasinski.
And thank you, Mr. President. In alphabetical order, Senator Westrom votes no.
Westrom votes no. Senator Jasinski, I think you have a couple more. We're waiting on Senator Goggin and Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize.
So not quite in alphabetical order.
I was trying to convert a list from alphabetical to help Cal, so Senator Goggin votes no.
Goggin votes no. Senator Jasinski.
And thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lang votes no.
Lang votes no. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 27 ayes and 37 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. Further discussion on Senate File 20. The Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File Number 20, a bill for an act relating to state government appropriating money for environment, natural resources, and tourism.
Third reading. Final discussion on the bill. Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. The presentation about this bill really reflects what the bill is all about. You know, this bill doesn't have a lot to be excited about, and I am going to vote for it because I do believe that parks need to be open and that we need to support the work of the agencies that are funded with this bill. But certainly, we miss a lot of opportunities to do very exciting work. Work that was proposed in the House, work that was proposed by the Walz administration. And just to name a couple of things, members, that we were presented with that we didn't do. Some of these things are involving environmental justice. And we were presented with the opportunity to really build a program to look at the cumulative impact of pollution in low-income areas. And what is interesting about this concept, members, is that many people think that this pollution is concentrated predominantly in areas where people of color and indigenous people live. And that is true. But we also have a lot of concentration of pollution in areas where poor people live. And the department presented an opportunity for us to really look into that and map it out and invest in that. We didn't do that. The administration also presented an opportunity for us to look at climate resilience and investments that need to be done in order to address climate change, which is urgent. We didn't do any of that. We also were presented with an opportunity that is actually a critical issue, which is to address pollution in landfills. And many members here have pollution in landfills located in their districts. We didn't do any of that. So members, there's not much to say because in here we're just doing the minimal. In a time when we are called to address significant challenges, I am going to vote green because I want to have the parks open and I want the agencies to have the funding to continue to function. I also want to remind our constituents of how we start this process, particularly in the Environment Committee where the chair and members of the majority told the governor that they were not going to approve the funding for the agencies under this division because of clean cars emissions, because the governor had put this as a priority. Interestingly, a lot of the industry people who understand where we are headed with electric cars came and complained about it and say that's so unreasonable. You're really going to put the state in a position that they are not going to be able to compete in that industry. We knew that from day one. But we were stubborn, so we put that as a condition and debated these issues that are so important to Minnesotans for the entire session. And here we are. Of course, we're not doing that because everybody's opposed to it. But we miss an opportunity to do very innovative things in this area. So it's very unfortunate, members. I am only saying that we are doing what is the responsible thing to do with this bill, which is to provide the funding that is necessary to continue the work of the agencies, of DNR in particular. I am sorry to say, members, you were not in, those of you who were not in committee did not hear the panic and the distress that so many staff from DNR express when we show the proposal that came from the Senate. They thought they were going to have to reduce funding for so many programs in DNR. So I hope tonight they are more relaxed. They understand that they're going to continue to work in so many areas related to water, related to parks, and so many other responsibilities under DNR. So thank you for that, members, for fighting for this funding, which is so important to the state of Minnesota. And we start a good summer with this approval of this funding. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Final discussion on the bill. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to stand and thank the author for the aquatic invasive species money available in this bill. Having a district with a lot of lakes in it, very important. It is a constant battle for us that live and play on the area lakes in southern Minnesota with aquatic invasive species. And I just commend the committee and the working group to include that in their funding. Thank you.
Final discussion on the bill. Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to just highlight one thing that I wish was in this bill that I have been working for several years with the agency and with the administration. That was a missed opportunity here, and that was to get the California CARS rulemaking at least put on pause. And instead of the administration trying to find a way to help with the growth that electric vehicles will slowly start gaining over the next few years, rather than trying to find a bipartisan solution of incentives or different ideas that have been thrown around, they've continued to opt instead for hyper-partisan totalitarian rulemaking. Even when so many people spoke up and wrote comments to the PCA rulemaking process, even though 13 chambers of commerce recently stood up together to send a letter to the administration and ask that these rules be stopped or delayed, they've continued on. Now, the one good note is that the agency has confirmed that it will be several years before these rules are implemented. So the people of Minnesota have another shot down the road to get this changed. But I'm going to continue to insist that the administration keep the promise that Governor Walz made about not going around the legislature and recognizing them as an equal branch of government. The California CARS rulemaking has failed to meet that standard, has gone along with a long history of trying to go around and advance their agenda through rulemaking and go around the legislative process. We'll keep working at it. We had an interesting experiment here these last few months of a different executive authority crisis with the emergency powers, whereby even when traffic was down by up to 40%, the pollution that was still in the air in our cities and in our communities stayed at a constant level, in some cases even ticked slightly higher. So that shows that many of these premises behind why these rules need to be adopted and why the agency pushes for them don't even match up to reality. Now, there are ways that we can all work together at making sure that our transportation it runs cleaner. All of our industries are working that way. All the car companies are actively moving in that direction to make cleaner products available on the road. And the market is getting there. But the arguments that we've had thrown at us for many years about why these rules need to be implemented and go around the legislature for that is first off wrong, is not a good policy precedent, and then is not based in fact as well. So we'll get another shot at it down the road. It was a missed opportunity to get in this bill, but I will highlight that here and continue to ask the administration to rethink their position and send these policies to the legislature. Thank you, Mr. President.
Final discussion on the bill. Senator Bigham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just really appreciate that the ban on the PFAS, otherwise known as the forever chemicals, in food packaging is included in here. That's been quite a lift to try and get through this legislature over the last couple of years. So I appreciate the House being persistent on that. No pun intended, because the chemical is quite persistent. But members, I have to say that you know, I think we need to be doing more with PFAS. The department, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, released a PFAS blueprint. You know, there's some things in here related to that, but we need to continue to implement that plan to prevent and remove and clean up this chemical in our groundwater, particularly in the East Metro, but members, because that's where you hear a lot of it, but this is a statewide issue. Senator Rude and I have had numerous conversations on this topic, and so it's something that we need to continue on. And I do think that there's, quite honestly, a lot more work that needs to be done on chronic wasting disease as well. I think that that was a missed opportunity here, but I also just hope that as things continue into next year when it's a policy year, I just kind of want to say that I hope negotiations go better in this realm of things. I think that this bill gets very politicized, and this is science, and this is our climate, and this is our environment. These are our waters, and this impacts our economy, and it impacts our future. And I guess I'm just kind of getting worn down, Mr. President, of this continued fight over this this bill. I had the honor of serving for 3 years on the Environment Committee, and I actually get along extremely well with Chair Ingebrigtsen. So it's not him, it's the concept in general of this topic that I think gets people really passionate. But I just hope that cooler heads can prevail and we can get some really good policy next year, because all the above depends on it. Thank you.
Final discussion on the bill. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not going to belabor here. I thank you all for the great discussion going on with regards to the Environment and Natural Resources funding bill. Members, compromise is what the public expects, and we were able to do that, and we were able to do that and get it done by totally funding the budgets for our environment. Now, I know my party has been accused of not spending enough money or enough general fund money on the environment for the years that I've been here, and that members, is absolutely incorrect. Between LCC-MAR, between legacy, and between general funds, as well as fees raised, and more money, obviously more land purchasing going on over the last years, our environment has been acknowledged and taken care of very well with the means that we have. This bill is really no different. The discussion about PFAS, remember, since 2002, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has been testing for PFAS in the state of Minnesota. But we need to do more for PFAS. You know, how much more do we do? Senator Marty, you said, you know, are we going to just keep kicking the can down the road on CWD? Well, obviously, we've been kicking the can down the road on PFAS. So it's all over the place. That's the comment I hear. We've moved a little bit in the right direction, I think, this year with a compromise. I'm not so sure how much more we can possibly do. But members, I think what we have before us is a very good, responsible bill. And off of what in the Finance Committee tonight, the Minority Leader, Senator Kent, said, tonight is a good night. We're going to pass this bill. Those weddings that were planned over the summer in the state parks are not going to have to be canceled. The bottom line is they're going to be open, and I know that's very important to Minnesotans. And for the last comment I have, I know the clean cars thing has been a big issue over the last year and a half, and I appreciate the senator bringing the bill forward to our committee. I also appreciate the fact now, too, that we all understand that it's going to be at least 2 years, and that's what we were asking for in the bill, and I'm glad the commissioner made it very clear that it's going to be at least 2 years, and then I believe it's actually a couple years beyond that. So we do have another chance at that, but nevertheless, we do have basically a moratorium, and we thank her for making that concession and moving forward. So members, I would ask for a green vote here. This is a good bill, and thank you again for the discussion.
Final discussion on the bill, Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I thank the hard work of everybody here, and you know, it's a balance of the hunting, fishing, boating, all the recreational things that we do, going to state parks, all of those things I think we all love in one form or the other, and I'm glad we took care of those. But then there's the other side of taking care of the environment, and I think we do that well. But it's always a cautionary tale of be careful, don't go too far too soon. And maybe some people don't agree with that, but frankly, some of the language that came out of the administration on the PFAS almost caused 3M not to be able to produce some of their products, Schwann's ice cream, General Mills, the grocery stores, almost, by just a half a day. And suddenly realizing what was about to happen was going to make what they're trying to do for all of us extremely difficult. And so we have to think very carefully about these things we're doing as we're trying to make sure we have a clean environment. California emission standards. It's not just cars, it's also the air. And I often say, I don't want to follow Los Angeles air standards. I think Minnesota could have figured out their own way. And then when we have those standards that get implemented ahead of where the market's driving, if the auto dealers are correct in saying that really the demand is only about 1% of their entire lot of cars, that people want electric cars, but with that standards, they have to carry 7%, well, who's supposed to take care of those cars that are just sitting on the lot? I think that the state of Minnesota should be looking at a buyback program, but we don't have that in there. And who buys electric cars? It's not the lower income. They don't have the money, so they need a stock of other cars that they're going to buy. And so we're waiting for the market to drive where we all think we're going, and that is someday all electric cars. But that's why we were so frustrated with just ramming all of that through as well without the legislative process. And so as we're taking care of the environment, enjoying the many things that we all do, It's a cautionary tale, folks. We have to be very, very careful about the consequences we do that affect everybody's lives, not just on the environment, but also all the products they enjoy.
Members were on final passage of Senate File 20. Senator Marty.
Mr. President, was not going to speak on the final passage of the bill, but I do want to make a point since I've heard so many comments about the clean cars. I carried the clean cars legislation about a decade ago. Federal law changed for a few years and made it almost unnecessary. But then about 4 years ago, it became necessary again, and so I'm glad the governor is taking executive order action to start the rulemaking to make it happen. We keep talking about how, oh, we're going to copy California law. No, we have two choices. We can copy the Washington, D.C. law or the California law, if you want to look at it that way. One of them is more aggressively working at trying to address climate. And I think when you look at the drought, folks are having more extreme weather of every kind. And the problems we have with climate, the idea that we're going to just bury our heads in the sand and maybe in time the economy will catch up and we'll make it happen. I've talked to a lot of people who want to buy electric cars and dealers don't carry them. In the states that pass the clean car standards, the dealers do carry them and they sell a lot more of them. So, I mean, we keep going here. Earlier when I had a little amendment to stop making the farm survey problem worse, the CWD problem worse, by at least putting a moratorium on there. Senator Ingebrigtsen said, you know, the governor could do that unilaterally if he wanted to. And maybe he could, but I keep hearing all the other time, oh, the governor's doing something unilaterally. We try and do it. No, we shouldn't do it. The governor can do it. The governor tries to do it. Oh, the governor shouldn't do it. In fact, we're saying we don't want anybody to do something about things like CWD. We don't want anybody to do something about climate. This bill isn't the energy bill, but there's not a lot of climate stuff in here. Even some aquatic invasive species language in the House had on the impact of climate on aquatic invasives. That's not acceptable. We can't talk about climate in this bill. I'm disappointed in the bill. I think there's some good things in it. I hear a lot of my colleagues are voting for it, some are voting against it. I'm going to vote against it because of disappointments in a lot of these provisions. But I appreciate a lot of things in here as well. I just have real trouble when people go saying the governor is doing all this really outrageous stuff. When you look at the problems we're having, the climatic changes we're having, when you look at the patterns, how what's happening in this last 50 years, and how that's happened compared to the change of climate over millennia in the past. We got a problem here and a real crisis, and we're not willing to talk about it. And so when people start saying, oh, the governor's doing something that might limit somebody's choice, it doesn't limit choice. From people I hear from, it'll expand choice. As far as the industry catching up, you know, we're falling behind the industry. The industry, how many manufacturers have said they're not making internal combustion engines in a few years? They're moving faster than the state of Minnesota is. And any attempt the governor makes to help us move a little bit, we're told are really outrageous. So that's not in this bill. I'm glad we don't do anything to take that away. But when people keep ranting and ranting about how the governor is doing really outrageous things, I think he's doing some very modest things that are at least a step in the right direction. I wish this bill would do more of them.
Members were on final passage of Senate File 20. See no further discussion. The Secretary will take the roll. Any members not in the chamber, please come vote. Call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes aye.
Abler votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Goggin votes aye.
Goggin votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Housley votes aye.
Housley votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Benson votes aye.
Benson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Johnson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Westrom votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Newman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Kiffmeyer votes aye.
Kiffmeyer votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
And thank you, Mr. President. Senator Osmic votes aye.
Osmic votes aye. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes aye.
Carlson votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Champion votes no.
Champion votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Dietzick votes no.
Dietzick votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Fateh votes no.
Fateh votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Isaacson votes no.
Isaacson votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Klein votes no.
Klein votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Latz votes yes.
Latz votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Murphy votes no.
Murphy votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Newton votes no.
Newton votes no. Senator Friends.
Senator Herr votes no.
Herr votes no. Senator Friends.
And Senator Port votes no.
Port votes no. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 49 ayes and 16 nays, the bill is passed. Its title agreed to. Next, we'll move to the 13th order of business, announcements of Senate interests. Without objection, the following members will be excused from today's session. Senator Bach from 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Senator Eaton from 7:30 p.m. to the end of session. Senator Herr from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Senator Rude from 8:10 to the end of session, 8:10 p.m. to the end of session. Announcements of Senate interest. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to announce there is no Senate Finance Committee tomorrow.
Any further announcements? Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, members, we're going to adjourn till Thursday. I just want to say that the House, I think, is going to take a while to get the transportation bill, so we're not sure that it would even get done till late tomorrow. So then rather than being around, we have to really wait for them to move some of their business, and so that's why we're going to wait until Thursday, so the day after tomorrow. Then I expect Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we'll see where we're at that point. Maybe we're done by that point, so we shall see. But that's why we're not meeting tomorrow, just because we have to wait for more work from the House. So, Mr. President, I move the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, June 24th at 10 a.m.
Senator Gazelka moves that the Senate adjourn till Thursday, June 24th at 10 a.m. On that motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. The Senate is adjourned.